This is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
A crazy weekend. What a way to kick off our show this week on this Monday. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Jen Rolnick, Derek Brandeo, and the next mayor of Toronto, Sammy McKee.
Oh, boy.
What do you think? You want the job?
Bit of a tortured history with this position, I'd say. Maybe not.
You're dressed for it.
Sam in full suit today. All are missing a scene. And he doesn't sound as good as he looks, though.
Well,
Thank you. Well, I got a little bit of a, it's a big weekend. But I'm powering through for the boys. Oh, boy.
Are you?
I was trying.
We've got Sammy on a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover.
No hangover.
No hangover.
Just a strained voice from yelling at the TV.
A lot of yelling involved in the game yesterday. And, yeah.
Did you have Kansas City?
I did.
I had Philly.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I
had KC.
I had KC. Betting against Mahomes sucks. So I didn't want to do it again.
Just before we move on, a horrible holding call penalty that killed the last minute and a half.
Yeah.
Like, this is where the officials have to take somewhat of a page out of the National Hockey League. And if it's not a real blatant scoring opportunity, then you have to kind of lean against making
Let the players
call.
figure it out. So I actually...
Are you with me?
100%. I want to ask, I think Micah Blake McCurdy might be the guy for this, but I want to see in the NHL how penalties are called by minute and how they decline late in games and overtime in playoffs. You have to murder someone in the third period of a close game in the playoffs.
Overtime in the playoffs in the NHL, you literally can cut a guy's head off on the ice. And
you'll have people say, well, the refs are deciding it by not calling those penalties. And it's like, I don't know, not really. I'm with you. You got to let the boys figure it out.
Come on. Give us a minute and a half to see if they can get within the distance to
so
send
it's a
this
little
thing
harder, a little more grabbing, a little more contentious.
Overtime. Now, how did you feel about Kansas City not walking in the touchdown and then playing out the last 11 seconds on the field goal?
It's the right call, 100%. And it's
I don't know.
It is. Of course it is.
Well, it worked out. There's no question. But tell me something. A bad snap, and where were you on that call?
You want to see him get the points,
no,
right?
Kyper, there is just no question. There's no way that was not the right move by him.
Wow, it worked out great for sure.
It did.
All I know is my tweet about the game was that, I didn't, not calling the NFL shiesty, but I'm not betting against them wanting Patrick Mahomes to do well and him getting a PI call in the final minutes.
Listen, I would be so mad if I was a Philly fan at the guy that held. And then he said after the game that he did hold him.
Yeah.
So you don't even really get to blame the bad call anymore because the guy who held him said he held him. That guy cannot say that if you're a Philly fan. Like it would drive you insane that he said that.
It was a catchable ball, though.
But that doesn't matter.
Right.
It's not PI. It's not. It's the hold before the ball. Like it's a hold.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not. Gene Steratore over here. I'm not throwing to me for rules expert, but I know that was. It sucked to have it end that way, but it was a great game.
Yeah.
Great and a great halftime show.
Well, listen, we're glad you're looking so good.
Thank you.
Tonight Sammy's my date tonight.
Yes, that's special. How romantic.
We're dressed up a little bit. Tonight will be what they call a night with the blue and white, brought to you, by the way, by Rogers. So it's a Leaf Gala night.
Cool.
My wife's a little under the weather, battling, I think I gave her what I had last week.
Yeah, she's got the Ontario's in February.
Filling in for Miss Anne-Marie. My good buddy Sammy McKee.
Your wife's not 6'6", is she?
I was reading the details. It's like Maple Leafs alumni and their significant others, and I'm like,
yes.
Like, okay,
you are another, and you're significant.
My significant producer.
Yeah, that's sweet.
That's how I'm going to introduce you tonight.
I'm really looking forward to it, Kyper.
The only question is, Sammy, is what kind of mood are the boys going to be in, or their head coach Sheldon Keefe coming off a regulation loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets Saturday night?
At home.
JB?
It can't be good. We're going to play some clips here from Sheldon, and old Kiefer was not feeling it. Unfortunately for this team, Sammy, you got this in our lineup here. Maple Leafs this season against bottom 8 teams have 5 wins and 13 tries. 5 wins and 13 tries this year. Meanwhile, we were saying the Bruins are what? Like
I think they've lost 1 or 2 out of 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Something up
like
there.
They've gotten
10, 2-2 or something.
Just they pick up the found money and they move on. Meanwhile, the Leafs are kicking it into the gutter every chance they can get. So you understand why there's some frustration.
This one, I went to the game Saturday night, and I'm watching that first period like everybody else. It's 2-0, and I don't think Columbus had 3 shots on goal in the first 16, 17 minutes of the game. And it looked every bit as dominant as it did 24 hours ago in Columbus. This was a back-to-back where you were going to take your 4 points and wave goodbye to the Blue Jackets.
Yep.
And something happened.
Exactly what you're talking about happened. They felt that it was just going to be that. They're going to let us take our 4 points and be on our merry way. Columbus is already bad, let alone on a back-to-back. Surely they'll roll over. This is going to be easy. And then they played like that.
All right, let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Kyper's Clipper of the week on where he saw the biggest issue Saturday night.
Find it to be more of an effort situation or an execution situation?
Effort. Yeah. Competitiveness.
Simple.
Oof.
Oh, my God. You don't get any clearer than that.
So we're still doing this?
Yeah.
We're still doing this?
Yes.
Every time they play a crappy team, we have to go through this again?
Let me ask you, because I can
getting
sense,
redundant.
I can sense the emotion on you, Sammy, right now, and I'm worried about taking you to the blue and white gala.
No,
to
I'll
be
be
honest
fine.
with you here,
I'll be fine.
you're not going to cause a scene, are you?
No.
Because I am so low key at these things. People won't even know I'm there.
Kipper, I am an incredibly low-key person when I need to be.
So listen, get out your frustration in the next 2 hours. We're here for you. If you need to leave,
Lay down on the leather couch here.
Come on, we'll pull a blanket for you, and you can just start spilling your guts. What is the biggest disappointment or issue you saw Saturday night, Sammy?
That we're still doing this. That I know nobody wins. There's no guaranteed wins in the NHL. Like, I understand that. But I think the Friday night would have been a more acceptable loss than Saturday night. You know, you're coming back, first game from a break, you get caught. The fact that they kicked the crap out of Columbus, they come home and they lose on home ice after a dominant first period. Why are we always still having these letdown spot conversations? It's a epidemic with this team. It always happens.
Columbus had 21 shots in the second period of that game. 21 shots. 40 on the game in Toronto for this defensively improved Leafs team.
So where was the biggest breakdown for you? Like where was the lack of competitiveness or lack of effort, as Sheldon put it, for you Saturday night?
Forwards defensively out of the offensive end, like, you know, you don't see guys covering up for one another and defending out of their other end. The hard things, didn't see much of that. Didn't see much scrappiness in front of the net.
Clearing the front of the net.
Yeah.
Like the Corrali goal where they made it 3-2. Was it Corrali that scored the third one?
Morgan Riley is kind of...
But he's just standing there whacking away at the pads, and those battles for the net's an effort thing. It's an effort thing. So, and they didn't have it.
For me, the biggest switch was when Columbus took a physical aspect to the Leafs. Like the physical battles that they just wanted the puck more. They fought for it harder. They outmuscled the Leafs. That, to me, was the biggest look that I saw Saturday night. And that was the compete that Sheldon was talking about. They just wanted it more. And when they started to push a little harder, it almost looked like Columbus grew about 2 or 3 inches and the Leafs shrunk 2 or 3 inches.
Yeah.
They got run over Saturday night in the back half of that game.
Until our boy Willie threw a elbow butt end combo in there, which, you know, not a great penalty, but I don't know. You know, do we want to weigh in? Do we want to hear Keefe on some of the discipline? Did that get away from them a little bit for you?
Without a doubt.
All right.
Let's listen to Sheldon on that.
I mean, when's the last time you've seen Willie Nylander retaliate or something like that? I kind of like it, to be honest. You know, they want to take runs at him every now and again. He's going to make the other team aware of it. But obviously in Bunt's situation, that's entirely different. That's something he's got to stay on that line.
Okay, hold on for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
This is where Sheldon got caught. You want to talk about discipline and not putting yourself in a position to retaliate, but he couldn't help himself. He's like, but I really liked it.
You're not supposed to do that, except if Willie wants to do that, he can. That's fine.
So there's two messages there.
Yeah. Well, the rules don't apply to everyone. And I don't know how you felt about your own coaches, but to me, you don't coach everyone with the same rules. Like everyone's like, we have a guy who treats everyone the same. Superstars, same treatment. That's not how it works. There are different rules for different people. Are there not?
Oh, without a doubt. No questions asked. And watching it happen and listening to Sheldon's comments, that everything that we've said about this team, he just validated for us.
Yeah.
All of those moments where you wanted somebody to step up. And we had a small window of it maybe 3 weeks ago with the back-to-back games with Simmons fighting Foligno in Boston, and then the follow-up game with a couple of the bottom six guys scrapping it out. Aston Reese coming to the rescue of one of his players getting hit. But all Sheldon did was validate that I kind of like it. It's something that isn't in our, in our repertoire when it comes to playing this game. It's not there, so that's what you kind of liked. It's kind of validating what's been missing maybe for him as a coach.
Yeah, and the interesting part is how different it is for a guy like Bunting, who we've talked on this show about how it's gotten away from him a little bit in terms of getting the calls. He's not getting the calls anymore. He seems to be doing more to try to take penalties. Last year, he was a plus 13 penalty differential, as in he drew 13 more than he took. And this year, he's almost even. He's plus 2. So, I think that message is much more about Bunting than Willie.
Yeah, and the line is literally plus 2, like he's 2 away from it being bad.
Yes.
That's the actual line is right there. Plus 13, he's playing on the right side of the line. Plus 2, you're way too close to the line.
Yeah, and it's getting there. Certainly, it's different than it was last year.
Did that unsportsmanlike call on him between the benches just completely, again, I don't know another word to use, but validate how the officials look at Michael Bunting from here on in?
I think that should be a reality check for him. That's how he's going to be. Things are going to be called now. You're a known guy at this point for the refs.
And to me, it absolutely has to now, fair or unfair. And there are times when he should get the benefit of the doubt and get the call, but you've almost like lost that. Again, fair or unfair, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of gone.
Yeah.
And for me, in the last, what do we say they have? 28 games to go?
Correct, yeah.
28 games to go. This guy has to be on his very best behavior. And you're going to draw penalties. Just the way he plays and how feisty
he's in
he
the
is.
blue paint.
He will draw penalties. But you got to do them subconsciously now.
Yeah.
You cannot give any thought to kind of manipulating a situation or embellishing any more than how it just naturally plays out.
For sure.
Or else no long stares to the officials, no talking to them. If I'm Sheldon Keefe or any veteran like Morgan Riley, I'm grabbing him and I'm saying, you don't look to an official, you don't talk to him, that's it, you're shut down.
Yeah.
Play the game and everything around it we'll look after for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not allowed now to go down that path any longer.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, he's a good enough player that he's a valuable contributor without any of those sort of antics. So aside from that element for Bunting, Do you think that loss on Saturday is indicative of a bigger problem with this team? Or is it just like good teams lose to bad teams all the time? But I feel like coming out of this weekend, we're hearing more drastic opinions on the Leafs. I don't know if you are, but talking to people I know with the Leafs, everyone's like, oh, this team.
Well,
everyone's so ready to quit on them.
Look at the barometer we have on the other side of the glass, right? He's down today.
Yeah.
Sammy.
Yes.
This one bothered you.
It did.
Where did Saturday night rank with you?
Wow.
All season long, and where would we have? And we've got a few choices with losses this year. We had the one in Anaheim early.
That's what I was going to put it up
Okay.
against.
We've got Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah.
Detroit, I think.
Yes. The Arizona one stands out to me in particular.
Detroit is not Columbus. Detroit's got good players. Like, to me, this is in the very, very top echelon of frustrating losses for the Leafs this year. Anaheim, horrible. But that was at the start of the year when it was going bad. This is just bad. You can't lose to teams like this on home ice, to me.
No.
Like, it's just, sure, you can get caught on, I'm sound horrible. I'm sorry, boys. It's cracking. I thought I had it.
You're good.
But,
You're good.
yeah, it's a tough thing when you repeatedly do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has been the trend with this group over the years, and you thought they were past it, but c'est la vie. Are they better off to just drop into the wild card, let Buffalo catch them, guys, and get Carolina? Okay, don't answer that.
Let's go to Sheldon Kyper. I think we've got his thoughts on his bottom six.
It's just habit slipping. It's not just Pierre, it's the whole line. Those guys in particular, I mean, those guys, to me last night, they were our best line. And they had good things happening tonight as well, but we need to be able to really consistently, like that line, that's what they do. They got to be competitive. They got to be great defensively. They got to be physical, all those kind of things. And when all that slips, that's not acceptable. So, that's really as simple as that.
Engvall shut down in the second period, did he not?
Yeah.
On the missed assignment?
Yep.
He got benched.
He did.
And it was a good benching.
You thought justified, yeah. Yeah, I think it's necessary for people on the team to see someone get benched, right? To see that's not a thing that Sheldon utilizes very often, is taking away ice time. We haven't seen it a ton. So it was good to see, but frustrating not to get more response, I guess, from the fellas.
I think the weekend also is just another example that if it's not Mitch and Willie and Tavares with his goals Friday night, if they're not going, they don't win.
Yeah. Well, and, I'm really hung up lately on the Ken Hitchcock comments about how if, the top two lines saw off in playoff series. For the most part, good teams have two good lines, and those two lines saw off or thereabouts within a couple of goals. And then it's what else do you have? And the what else do you have question has been looming pretty large lately. They're giving some run to, Steves and Anderson and, God knows who else, but that's not going to be the answer here.
Are you okay with that? I mean, holding open auditions for the roster of the Toronto Maple Leafs in late February, early March?
I think if you haven't found something, you better be. I don't know, as opposed to just saying, here you go, or it's trade time. And I think we're safely at the point here. We're within 3 weeks of trade deadline where it's like, show us that we don't need to go get someone else. And if you don't, then we're going to go get someone else. That's where it feels like it's at for me.
The other one, too, for the bottom six, to me, is just a little bit of a drop-off on Kampf. That
Interesting.
He's not getting any looks. I don't know when the last time he scored.
Great question.
I would think we're talking about 10-plus games.
I think it's way more.
You think it's way more?
I do. I can't remember the last time he scored a goal.
He is the heart of the bottom six.
Oh, my God.
Is he not?
The last time he scored was in early December.
Oh, wow.
2 months since he scored a goal.
Okay.
2 months?
All right.
That's too much time for a guy who plays 15 minutes a night.
Is that almost 20 games? What are we talking about here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That to me is yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. And listen, we know he almost
30.
went a whole season without scoring in Chicago. He's not supposed to score.
No.
But there's
But you're on the ice enough.
25 games.
25?
Yeah.
Thank you.
there's been a different look for him since he's been a Toronto Maple Leaf, including one that creates more offense than he ever did in Chicago. You can't go that long without a goal.
No.
As a third line guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. As a third line guy who plays 15, 16 minutes, I've looked at the ice time among forwards, and he's sixth most among forwards. So you got your four big guys.
Yeah.
Then I forget who would have snuck in there, maybe Kerfoot or Yarncroc or someone, but then it's him. Yeah, you're going to need some output. And that's why every time he scored in the past, it felt like gravy. But yeah, 4 goals on the season for Camp so far this year. You know, last year felt like maybe it was the start of getting a little bit more from him. Also, maybe that helps you keep him because you're not going to have to pay him for any offense.
And all these guys they bring up are just so similar. Like Steve's and Bobby McMahon, have they ever been seen in the same room?
Oh, I disagree on that.
They're
But
just guys that look good and can shoot it at the net and don't
McCann,
score.
Steve's, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Well,
personally.
he had like multiple chances in that game. Hit the
Yeah.
post, got stoned.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. He actually
you know,
ripped one off the post, didn't he? That's right.
And he had a chance in the Friday night game. Like it's just another guy that kind of bring up here that shoots it towards the net and
For
kind of
me,
skates around.
McMahon's a
and-
power forward. Like he can go bully the forecheck, take the puck from people, be in the blue paint. Steve's isn't.
that should be good against.
The only thing is like, you know, for me, it's, you know, if we're talking about a guy like Joey Anderson, it's, are you focused on him contributing offensively? Is that where the attention is for these guys? Are they all feeling a press to put the puck in the net?
I don't think so. And
Then, you know, then where is the look? Is
Yeah.
it a physical dominant look?
right.
What's the identity?
What's the identity of you if you're not feeling the heat to score?
There's too many guys who
What would you say?
aren't expected to
here?
do anything but not be bad. You know, and they've proven they have a lot of guys who can look not bad, but who can do something, who can move the needle in any capacity.
Yeah.
You know, Holmberg, sure. McMahon, I still think is my favorite of that group outside Holmberg, but
Yeah. See, this is, again, I'm reading an article the other day on Joey Anderson, and I think I read that he had a 68% expected goals.
Mhm.
I see Joey Anderson, and I don't expect to see goals. Okay? Why are we talking about his
line.
expected goals?
His line is
who
played
is
in the right
expecting
end.
him to score goals?
It
You know
just
what I
means
mean?
more
But
shots and
do you
chances.
understand what I'm saying here?
I do. Yes. No one's expecting him to contribute. I think the idea is that when he's been on the ice, the play's gone the right way. However, you know, what's the point of those minutes if it's not, you know, okay, they're not going to score, they don't forecheck. That's great that they haven't been caved in. There's also the other thing, Kipper, who they playing against.
Yeah.
Who's Joey Anderson? They've played who? Columbus twice and someone else. He's playing Columbus.
Boston.
Columbus and Boston. You're getting their fourth line. It's gone well through 3 or 4 games against the lower lines. Okay, it doesn't teach me anything in the game of useful or useless stats.
Yeah.
Take any useless on that.
You know, Brendan Tanev is a guy that I kind of say that is your model fourth line type of player.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you look at Vegas and they've had a pretty good week. And another guy on that in that lineup is William Carrier.
Mm-hmm.
To me is another like perfect fourth line guy. This guy is a mule
Yeah.
and can move on the ice. And then I looked the other day and he's got like 14 goals.
Yeah. Oh, he's a player.
14.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be nice. Yeah.
And I'm
Real
like,
contribution in the bottom 6.
just one of those, that type of guy
Yeah.
where they just appear
Totally agree.
heavy, just heavy and a
Yeah.
pain in the ass heavy, right? Where you're just like, oh, not him
I
again.
was more intrigued by the 14 goals part than
Yeah.
you know, just someone in the bottom 6. You go, oh, and I know I'm supposed to go. Oh, Engvall is on. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, Engvall's supposed to be more than that. And there are windows when he's looked good.
Yeah, he looks great against Columbus on a Friday or, whatever, for sure.
One more, Sheldon Keefe. I think he was rather short on making it apparent to everybody that he doesn't play anymore.
You guys talk to the players. I'm sure that you ask them the same questions. I can't do the work for them.
Okay, it's clear now. He cannot step on the ice and actually do it for them.
Right. I mean, that's as frustrated as we've heard Keefe. And I think you do reach a point as a coach where you go, okay, like how many we've had these same discussions many times. At some point, it's on the players.
I'm
Yeah.
The one thing I will say that's consistent with all of our Kippers Clippers this morning or this afternoon, sorry. He's smart enough to know that less is better.
If you can't say something nice.
Coach is going to keep his mouth shut.
Sammy?
Yes.
Not much in the Kippers Clippers today out of Sheldon Keefe. And good on him because, as JB just alluded to, I can't get in too much trouble if I keep it short.
Any new
That was the
Samsonov
maddest.
or Wool
Yeah.
thoughts?
That was the maddest I've seen him in a press conference, I think, this year.
Yeah.
Just, he was visibly steaming.
He gets really hot in a way that you can't get through to him. And I'm surprised we haven't seen it in the media more. I guess they've mostly been very good.
But is that a good thing?
No.
For the coach?
No.
No. That's not. No.
No, it is not.
Yeah. But again, just to touch on the fourth line, I like Sean Corrali.
Yeah,
I liked
me
him
too.
in Boston.
Yeah.
And he was a difference maker Saturday night.
Yeah, he's a good
on
player.
that bottom six and being matched up against Tavares on occasion.
I think you get a Corrali out of there, couldn't you?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so.
Doesn't seem like
He's
a guy
making
who's a ton of value.
2.5.
Is he really? Oh, that's
2.5,
that's
Sammy?
way more than I would have guessed.
2.5 till 2025. So for 2 more years after this one.
Oh, I liked him, but geez, I had no idea he was on that contract.
I take
tear.
him.
I was gonna
I
say,
think he's a
tear.
playoff performer too. He could shut down
Take him more
guys.
than Engvall? You get one or the other?
Oh, I take Corrali's a proven playoff guy
Yeah.
with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, he scored in Game 7 against the Maplers once
Right.
upon a time.
He was Nick Paul before Nick Paul was Nick Paul last year. He was.
Okay. I can see that. So I couldn't help but watch that game without watching for potential pieces that the Leafs could go after.
Oh my
any
gosh.
new thought?
You could
Gavrikhov's in the game.
first liner, second line.
Well, but that's it. You're
Where do
watching
you want to start? Saturday night they're leaking oil everywhere.
the Leafs were.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I was watching for Gavrikov.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
like a sense for I was watching Boone Jenner, like watching for these guys who could potentially become available that could help the Leafs. Sammy and I did Leafs talk on Friday night. He didn't love Gavrikov. It wasn't a part of all the great highlights, but I can see how Gavrikov could be a big help for the Leafs. Like he's big, skates,
He's David Savard.
took a penalty being
Right.
a meatball. That's nice to see. Not that we encourage penalties, but he's
The
mad
coach
at
of-
someone.
Coach of the Leafs does.
Yeah.
Light Willie. So
Grease it up out there a little bit.
The only question is again, like anything else, what's the price and how far you want to go, and rentals versus someone substantial that you could fit into your cap in the next year or two.
Mm-hmm. Anything changed for you in terms of what you want to see the Leafs do over the weekend?
Oh gosh, yeah, I was a little perturbed like everybody else for Saturday night.
Yeah.
There's so many things that bothered me about Saturday night, and and I'll include Sheldon Keefe as well in this.
Yeah.
You know what I didn't like is that it's a back-to-back night, but you're at home. And you got to ask Mitch Marner to play almost 29 minutes.
Did you see Marner's ice time?
28. I don't know what it finished.
28.50 or something. The second most
Oh.
to a forward all year.
No, ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And it's even more ridiculous, again, that you're at home against one of the worst teams in the
In
league.
game 50.
And you need Mitch Marner on the ice for 5 minutes in the third period. played almost all the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He barely came off the ice. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse to need to put that on Mitch Marner when you've got 28 games to go
Yeah.
and you're supposed to be gearing up for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I did not like that. I didn't like that.
Isn't that more of a comment on the personnel, though, Kip? Like, what other options?
He
You know what the
hated,
option
the
is?
third
You're
line.
trying to
you know
win
what the
the
option
game.
is?
What?
Like, I'd rather lose learning a lesson than trying to win like that.
Yeah. I think it's probably hard on the bench in a 1-goal game to zoom out to that point, but I think you're right. Like, I think you'd much rather go with, the guys who have been failing and say, see, here's why we failed, rather than go, we went to the one guy who was performing, we didn't get it done.
Yeah. And I know there's TV timeouts and there's, different scenarios.
No, 29
where,
minutes is
but
way
it's just,
too much.
He's going to get caught again. Relying on these guys too much. And
You can't blame them in the playoffs. They don't have anyone else. That's the plan, is these guys are the plan, which is a Dubas thing.
You're not going to leave anything in the gas tank for a guy like that going in.
If I'm Sheldon, I just need to get through the round. And if I don't have anyone else to put on the ice, that's, what do you want me to do here?
I don't blame him for having him out there for the last 4 minutes. It's like, well, do I have a better chance with the Marley crew in the bottom 6 to get a goal? Like, he's the best player on the team by far in the lineup. You got to play him.
Timo time.
What are you
Bring us
supposed to
Timo
do?
Meyer.
Like, I've played with experienced coaches where they would be like, they would know that's where it's headed and trending, and they would almost not put out their best players to try to find a way
these guys
to
aren't going to
salvage
save
it.
you.
So he can turn around to his general managers and see what you got me.
Yeah.
But that's a different relationship between Sheldon and Kyle.
Right. But I still
that's-
think that would happen to some extent. I could see them being frustrated with a lack of options and saying,
Yeah.
you want me to put
But
Steves out, or is it Anderson, or is it Holmberg, or is it Aston Reese, or is it?
When I saw almost 30 minutes for Mitch Marner on a Saturday night at home against the worst team in the league,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just not right.
Those optics.
Yeah.
That ain't great.
Now, where would you look over your shoulder? Is Tampa Bay coming? What kind of feeling would you go into a first round against Tampa if you've lost home ice advantage here? Where is the optics and the feel and the energy if, in fact, this thing slips?
I think it'll work for the Leafs.
You do?
I do. I just feel like
So it's you don't have that much of an emphasis on it. Then, to my point, even more, don't go and
For
play
sure.
Mitch 29 minutes.
I just feel like because of the trend we're talking about, how they go out against dogs and play like dogs, you have to present them with a challenge to get the most out of them and say, it's Tampa Bay and they have home ice. Like, we need your very best. Like, it might be the thing that gets every little lick of attention. I'm not saying you want to not have home ice. Of course you want to have home ice, but it's just so hard to get their attention unless it's a big game. It's a concern. Interesting, no Matthews. Do we think differently? You should be able to win without Matthews against Columbus at home, right?
Yes.
Is he coming back soon? Do we have any?
I think he skated. Skated. So, what do we have?
Chicago
Wednesday night.
Yeah. Probably let him sit that one out.
Is it Wednesday, Saturday?
Think so.
Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's
See you Saturday night.
if it's not against Chicago, you give him another full week. He should be fine by then. They projected 3 weeks. I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything that has changed otherwise.
No.
But see, the one thing that, when I listen to you say that, yeah, maybe it'll be enough to change up things.
Yeah.
But two trends that really bother me is continuing to lose points to bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
And the last few years, the trend on the power play in the back half
Yeah.
going south.
Real south.
And are you just a hoper now that there's a switch that you hit and everything will be fine? Or do you buy into, I don't like this trend, I don't like where it's heading now?
just don't know what to do about it outside of getting new personnel. You know, I had an article in the Power Play last week, which we talked about in the show. You know, that it has consistently, they've started years good and kind of got worse as the year has gone on. Do you feel like they need a quarterback? Like, I know it seems like Chikrin is out now, likely not to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. Like,
yeah, I just think until a deal's done, everybody should be available and everybody should be in the mix of conversations until you're told otherwise.
yeah,
Leafs are now top 5 in the league in power play.
in power play percentage.
Yeah, they're 4th in the league now.
It's crazy.
Surprising to me.
Do you like their power play?
No,
That's the best, worst power play.
it is shocking.
You know, I think people hear us and go, you know, what are the standards or whatever? But it's like when you have 4 guys who make whatever money they make, the expectations are very high that they be as good as they are. But it just seems to happen because they have talent and they do a game-breaking thing. They make a play. It's not like there's some routine structure where they're like, oh, they're lethal because they just have good players on the ice. It doesn't seem like a structure thing when they have success.
Yeah, just the one opportunity Saturday night, and Morgan Riley ended up with a power play goal, which sure felt good for him. But
Did you see that stat I put in the lineup there?
Which
first
one?
power play goal from a defenseman it was the first time in 69 games that had happened for the Leafs.
First power play goal from a D-man in 69 games.
for a
Not
top
nice.
5 percentage.
Not nice.
Not nice.
No.
For a top 5 percentage.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's a crazy number.
What's crazy, too, is if you think about the Leafs power play forwards, those 4 guys, who's a great power play scorer? Like, who's scoring? They're top 5, like Matthews.
Willie. They're all good.
Yeah, they're all good. I don't know. It's not like they have Ovechkin or, I don't know. It's
McDavid, who just
right. McDavid,
lights it
Draisaitl
up.
doing
Yeah.
the thing. I don't know.
Thoughts on Wall Saturday night?
I don't have any. No, like I watched him. I was like, he wasn't terrible. He's fine. Would have liked him to cover the one up that gets loose.
That was the where he couldn't corral it, right?
Yeah, he
with
had a
the pad?
stick in his glove
Yeah.
at one point there. But like, I don't know. I didn't really fault him for any of the goals. I didn't come away with it with a take. The one thing I did notice is he seems very technically sound. Like he's very good position. Movements are clean, sharp. Like he looked like a goalie to me. Wooly the goalie.
nice.
He looked good. But I don't know. What am I?
I thought Samsonov was good on Friday. Even though they didn't have a ton of chances, I thought he made some good saves. Nice shutout. I thought he was good Friday night. So that's good. That's important.
Trending for sure
Yeah,
for him
100%.
now.
Yeah.
Like, would you even consider if Matt Murray was healthy today to play possibly against Chicago this week, that there would be enough time for him to get you, Sammy, to believe that he could be a difference maker in the playoffs?
No.
Or there's just, no matter what he does, back-to-back wins, a nice little stretch.
Oh, there's enough time.
Is there enough time?
There's enough time, but he's got to get
I think
hot.
I think when he was playing really well, you never thought it was going to end. And
Yeah.
then when it did end, my faith was completely pulled out.
You're
It's
like, how did it ever happen in the
I don't
first
know if I
place?
can. I don't know if I can drum this faith back up in Murray.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take.
I would
a
say
lot.
what's a challenge for Murray now is I don't know that any teams, like were he a UFA this year, I don't know that any team would invest in him because of his injury history. He just is not available enough. And so maybe in the playoffs, he's healthy for the perfect time and he could be good when he's healthy, but it doesn't feel comfortable knowing that, you know, getting in and out of his car every day could be the next thing that costs him a week.
In the last 3 weeks, I've seen enough examples of a high ankle sprain where I said, Patrick Mahomes done.
I know.
Like how is he hobbling
I saw someone
back
tweet-
into
I got some thoughts here. Boys.
how can he do it?
he's milking it,
You think he melted
buddy?
it?
As a diehard Tiger Woods fan, I know when a man is milking it. It's like, oh, he hits a bad shot, and all of a sudden his back's a
The
little
wins.
tight.
Yeah.
You know,
I also
He
saw
runs-
someone say,
he
I
runs-
want once in my life to be on whatever amount of drugs
Yes.
Mahomes is right now.
he ran perfectly, and then he gets up and he's like,
17,
oh,
18
limp,
yards.
limp.
Yeah.
His run was incredible.
Yeah, and then he limps after. We just saw you run perfectly. You don't need to limp. He's one of the best
like,
ever.
I'm
but
here
he
for
was,
that take.
he was milking it hard, boys.
There's a lot of times we give athletes so much benefit of the doubt because they're incredible athletes. And they're like, but he's also a little bit.
Can we hope that
Milking.
Matt Murray's milking something with his ankle?
I don't know.
I got to think what I presume is a high ankle sprain for a goalie is going to be really hard to overcome
Yeah.
the rest of the season.
Well, then they need another goalie here, even though Dubas said they didn't. You know what you need is
that
you need him
Korpisalo
to come
looked
back
pretty-
soon
right?
enough so he can get hurt again, and you can know you need a goalie. That's what you need to happen.
My Korpisalo idea wasn't the worst idea.
Uh,
He looked pretty good on Friday night.
what we saw out of Elvis Merzlikins Saturday night was reminiscent of Leafs beaten out
Yes, he was good
by
He was
Columbus
really good.
in the bubble.
Yeah, he was really good.
Really good.
And he's had an awful year. Like they flashed his numbers up, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I know.
Hide the children. Oh my god.
Yeah. But he was lights out. He had a few 10-bellers
Yeah, for sure.
Saturday night. Okay, let's take a quick break. Anthony Stewart, hockey analyst with Sportsnet, former NHLer. He's gonna talk Leafs. He's gonna let us know what Bunting needs to do to maybe win back some of the officials here in the last 28 games. And in the back hour, guys, come on, Sammy. Should have teed this up right from the get-go. Bruce Boudreau,
Oh,
Gabby,
yeah,
will
Gabby in
stop
the
by,
house.
and he's back in the media. So, do you think there's time between now and the commercial break we can have him do a cameo for us?
They're so good.
What's he charging?
I don't know.
Can he do one for real Kyper and Bourne? You know what? We won't pay for it. We'll just get him to do it on our show after the break.
Brilliant, Kip.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right.
Okay. Gabby, Anthony Stewart. We got a ton still to go on Real Kyper and Bourne. Back after these words.
Wheel, Kyper, and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, let's bring in Anthony Stewart, hockey analyst with Sportsnet, former NHLer. And I got to come to you, Stewie, right off the bat, because my crew here believe that Patrick Mahomes last night milked the whole high ankle sprain thing, and it was conveniently used to gain sympathy and create this mystique that, he won the Super Bowl with one leg. Where are you? Because in all honesty, it never crossed my mind, but now these guys have me thinking about that. Do you think he milked it?
Well, I'm not sure if you've been following social media. I think it was all part of the script, right? So we're talking about being scripted, and that is a perfect script. But, I think for Mahomes, it just adds to the mystique of what type of quarterback he is, one of the greatest of all times, and they're pegging them that already. So hurt, unhurt, they got a lot of good drugs, especially at the NFL level. So even if he had a fake leg, I think he'd still be good to go.
Did you make goat curry for the Super Bowl?
Curry goat. It's curry goat.
Curry goat? Okay.
No, we had actually stew peas. So my dad's brother's visiting from England, so he made stew peas, which is just as exotic looking, but just as equally as good as well.
Right. Good to know. So the less exciting part of the weekend was when the Toronto Maple Leafs played the Columbus Blue Jackets on Saturday night. Not their best showing, Stewie. Do you have a greater takeaway from that game than, just a bad night by a good team?
Well, I'll start this off by saying this is not a paid advertisement. I'm not an agent provocateur of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but remember, this is the second game back from All-Star break. I went down there. I took some of our mentorship kids down there from the weekend, and I've still got that All-Star weekend hangover. So, you're coming back from taking a couple days off. It takes time for the body to recover. And, first game you play guilty, it's the second game where it really hits you. So I haven't really heard that take where saying, like, hey, it's the first couple days back. You saw their first practice. Guys are hunched over. Guys are breathing heavy. It takes some time. So, yes, you want to be able to get those points, those valuable points that could come in handy or not versus some of the bottom teams. But, if we were talking 10 days from now, yeah, I'd be very, very concerned. But I think this is probably just an outlier of, the great season that they've been having. But, yeah, you don't want to be giving up a 2-0 lead. They came out really, really strong. You want to help out a young goalie who potentially could be in the net for you, down the line. A lot of things went wrong, but, I was looking for us to point the finger at something, and I'm like, oh, maybe they got to block more shots. Morgan Riley had 5-6 block shots. They had a couple breakdowns, a couple brain farts, brain cramps, as they would say. But, that for me, that's a given coming back the first couple of games after All-Star break.
So, Stewie, lack of compete or lack of discipline, we heard from Sheldon Keefe on a few of our clips to start our show. Not as big of a concern for you as it was for him?
Well, I don't think it was that big of a concern. I heard his comments, but he was probably just putting them a notice saying, guys, we got this last final stretch here, last 20 games where it's so much harder to get power plays and score goals. You're not going to be scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. You're going to have to find a way to get points because I think a lot of fans don't realize here, there's a win and there's an easy win, right? When you have to have this emotional roller coaster of battling back and every single game's going down to the last minute, that weighs on you really, really mentally and emotionally, and that can really affect your game. So, for me, that should have been an easy win, but I understand that. But I think for him, he's just like saying, guys, we've already set the bar. We've set the barometer of how we have to play for the rest of the season. We're not going to accept this step back. So again, I think the real test is how their next game is going to be. Are they going to step up and really take it to the next level? That first 5-10 minutes will be indicative of if they're really, ready to take the next step, as they would say.
So, Stu, you tend to be pretty bullish on the Leafs, like myself. I mean, this is a good team that's had success for a lot of years, just hasn't come in the playoffs yet. How much different do you think they need to look personnel-wise than they currently look? How much do they need to add in the next 3 weeks?
Well, I'm not an analytics guy, but I listened to somebody tweet about it the other day, and I guess in the last 5 years, 5-on-5, they're 21st in the NHL in scoring. So I think they need to now find a way, to have a guy score 5-on-5. And you're looking at a player like Bunting, who's taking a lot of the criticism as of late. He's got 30 even strike points, and I don't think any of the other top 4 have 40 points. So I think for them, they need to get a guy that you know is going to step up and put up points 5-on-5. So who is that? Is that going to be Patrick Kane? I know he's struggling. I know they probably don't have the assets to get them, but, maybe a top 6 guy. But I honestly think Knies is going to come in, step in, and be a guy. He's trending in the right direction. I know it's a lot of pressure to put him in to a top 6 role right away. Jan Krok's filling in admirably as well, too, but you need to go up and down and look at the analytics. Justin, that's your job, not mine.
Okay.
And really see who is that guy, rain, sleet, or snow, or shine. He's stepping up, and he's going to score that big goal 5-on-5. Who is that guy? It's not me.
I don't know, bud.
We're joined by Anthony Stewart, hockey analyst with Sportsnet. So 2 physical altercations, if we call it anything, Saturday night. And you had mentioned Bunting. He was in one of them. Willie Nylander in the other one. Both didn't fare well when it came to drawing penalties for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But where are you on that and particularly in Bunting at times maybe crossing the line, and your thoughts on Willie Nylander showing a side of him that we really haven't seen before, Stewie?
Well, I think with Bunting, he walks the line, and sometimes he does cross it. But we go back to a former Maple Leaf that crossed the line habitually big, and Nazem Kadri. And you look at this roster, and you're saying, who are they missing right now? Is Kadri. So you have to take the good and the bad with Bunting. He drags his team into the fight, and a team that sort of gets into the lulls sometimes, you really need a guy like him to keep the other team accountable. And it's not just the punches after the whistle. It's the yapping at the bench. I used to be like, man, let me just get through this game, and I got a guy yelling at me at the bench for no reason. And with Nylander, he's got to start sticking up for himself. I love things like that too, because the intimidation factor is a big point of the game. I used to go against guys, and if I knew I could get an edge on him physically, I'd give him a little face wash, I'd give him a little eye gouge, a little, punch in the stomach. But it went both ways. If there was another team that had a guy that I was really, really worried about physically really doing some damage to me, I know we're talking about, 10, 15 years ago, and I sound like a dinosaur, I would settle down. So the physicality and the intimidation is a big part of the game, and it is going to be like that, especially in playoffs. So when you have Nylander sticking up for himself, you have that defenseman who went against him the other night said, you know what, I'm going to take an easier target. Let me go after somebody else. So it's good to shoot. I like it, and I saw Keith's comments. That was perfect. It nailed it right on the head there, that you want to see him stick up for himself because, again, he's a big player, and you don't have to worry about him taking a step back because he's worried what's going to happen to him physically out there.
Yeah. We've been talking here about the power play a little bit, and should we be concerned about it as you head into playoffs? It's kind of let them down in the postseason in the past. They're a top 5 power play in the NHL, though, Stewie. So do you think it's overblown, these concerns about the power play? Because it has dried up pretty consistently in the playoffs.
Yeah, for me, it's, this team is very, very talented, and I think sometimes they try to overcreate, a lot of those seam passes. And you're looking at some of the other power plays that have, they have the big shot, they have the big 1T, they're really, really good on puck retrievals, but sometimes they just go back to the basics and shoot for sticks and redirect second and third opportunities where, this team can now try to set up the bumper play or go cross seam, back double cross seam, globetrotter it up. So that's my concern, but it seems to be working for them right now. So I see as you get to game 60 and 80, you're going to see maybe the second unit, instead of getting garbage time, maybe getting 45 seconds to see what they can do. Because I remember a couple of weeks ago before the break, they were scoring some big goals as well. So I think I want to see a little bit more variety with the personnel. I don't want to see the 5 forwards. I know you're advocating for that, Justin, and maybe Kyper as well. I don't know. I got to check the tape on that. But just get back to the basics. Get back to the basics, because in playoffs, it's so hard to get that extra inch and keep it fancy. You got to take what you get out there.
Justin, earlier in the show, Stewie told me that with 28 games to go, there's still some time for Matt Murray to come back and reestablish something. Before that can happen, he's got to solidify the backup role right now because it's Samsonov's net. But in your opinion, who should the Leafs be focusing on to groom to at least put themselves in a position to back up? Is it Wall or is it Matt Murray?
Well, I hope Sam's on break here, because I heard him going crazy about Murray, not saying there's enough time. But again, this is the problem that I think that the Maple Leafs wanted to have. Where is it going to be Samsonov or Murray? Yes, you want to see a little bit more consistency. You want to see Murray stay healthy, but I still think there is some time. If he comes back in the last, say it's 17, 18 games, and he gets in a groove where he plays 3-4 in a row, I think that's all it would take for him to really get that number one position. And I think earlier on in the season, he was poised to be that guy. But I think the Maple Leafs, and bringing both guys in, they wanted to have that problem where, they're pushing each other every single night. One guy might get back to back, and then the other guy sits and then comes in and steps up. I think that internal competition is really going to push the group. But as you get to the last, 10 games, I think you want to know who the guy is going to be. So there's still a lot of time before we get there. But again, I haven't lost faith in Murray. He went from Vezina contender to waiver, get him on waivers, send him down, bring up, errors. So again, it's topsy-turvy in the coverage of it. But again, I think the Maple Leafs, they know that they're going to have a good problem to have in deciding if it's going to be Murray or Samsonov.
Stewie, how do you judge a coach? It's tough to judge Sheldon Keefe. He's had so much success in the regular season. They haven't won that Game 7 yet. When you evaluate an NHL coach and the job they're doing, what are you looking for?
Well, I think just managing the group, right? Yeah. And, you have to manage different expectations, different egos, different tax brackets. I think he's done an admirable job of that. When's the last time you heard a hot mic moment? From this group. And I think it was maybe October, November. So to be able to do this in this market, the one thing I can say about Sheldon Keefe, I talked about it before, he's in the community. We had some kids yesterday, they were signing autographs, taking the subway with the team. I'm seeing him at the arena. He's really embracing the role of ambassador, being the Toronto Maple Leaf coach. So I give him full marks. I would not want to be coaching. I'm coaching a top flight U10 player. I would not want to be coaching a $15 million player and having to manage those type of players every single day. So, but ultimately you're going to be judged in the playoffs, and you have to have success. We're in the winning business. It's the success business. And I think ultimately that's how he's going to be judged. But his time that he's been the head coach here, again, I have to give him an A because, again, all those other factors and being in this market of Toronto, he's doing a great job.
Stewie, under 3 weeks to go for the trade deadline, limited assets that Kyle Dubas can play with here. Where do you focus first?
This team is built around the big four and them stepping up. So I know we're talking about adding a second line winger, but again, it's going to come down to if Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander step up and have A+ series. So I think you got to now redirect the focus to defense. I'd like to see a little bit more depth, maybe a little bit a power play asset back there. I know Timmins has been playing well. He signed his 2-year extension as well. But again, do you go out, do you get an Ekholm? Can you get a Dumba? The assets are very few and far between. So again, a puck moving D, a guy that can step up. So, Kyper, I always use your line. I've stolen it and I've used it for TV. You need 8, 9, 10 defensemen to go on a run. I think they need to add 1, possibly 2 more.
Yeah. Totally agree, pal.
All right, last one from me, Stu, is just I want to get your thoughts on the Leafs bottom 6 and what they should want from them. In the past, the fourth line's role hasn't been clear with Spezza and some guys like that. Like, what should they be hoping to get out of their fourth line now?
Well, I always go back to my day when I got called up to the Florida Panthers, and I went back down to the Rochester Americans, where we shared an affiliate with the Rochester Americans. And Clark MacArthur used to always read my stat sheet. I'd come back with 0, 0, 0, 0 goals, 0 assists, 0, and 0 PIMs. And he'd call me the ghost of Christmas past, and he'd be like, "Woo, Stewie's back. Woo." So you need something. You need some hits.
Nice
you need
guy.
some hits. You need some truculence. You need to be blocking shots. So just a little bit more depth. I go back to my international ice hockey game where you have the chubby guy, the skinny guy, and the medium guy. You need a little bit more variety back there. Where it just seems the bottom 6, it's the same guy. It's the same guy. So, and I have a little bit of and again, Leafs Nation, this is your job to know. I couldn't tell the difference between Kasha and Camp. And I know Camp is playing really, really good hockey last year, but to me, they were the same player. So again, just a little bit more variety, a little bit more size, a little bit more truculence. And again, I don't think this is the last you've seen about Wayne Simmons. I think he can step up and be inserted into a series and, change the tone of it physically. So just a little bit more variety, but again, don't be like me. Don't be the ghost of Christmas past. Do something out there, please.
Very well said, Stewie. Always appreciate you coming on our show. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Thanks a lot. Go Leafs, go.
Thanks, buddy.
Anthony Stewart. Fun.
Oh, yeah.
Now. Okay, so he kind of talked everybody off the ledge that apparently, much like Sammy, it's an all-star hangover that caused the loss Saturday night, and there's not as many red flags as maybe others would think. You buy it?
Well, it's tough to know what to ascribe to what, but not entirely. Only because we showed the record before that they've played 13 games against the bottom 8 teams in the league and won 5. So were it not a part of a larger trend, I would definitely be like, yeah, I can see it. It is a little harder when it's something that they have done. here for a bit now.
The other thing I want to get to, and we're going to go to break, and we got Bruce Boudreau coming up after the break, so you're not going to want to miss that. The one thing that kind of stood out for me a little bit Saturday night, too, is a drop-off on the blue line.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Sammy, was it a month ago? We were maybe even short, or 3 weeks ago. We were talking about Liljegren and Sandin stepping up now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we envision seeing them as a top playoff pair and matching up. There's times when I saw Sandin bumped off of pucks a little too easy Saturday night. I did not like Justin Hall's game at all Saturday night.
Yeah.
Where are we now on that blue line?
Where we are now, I feel like everyone has, if you ask most Leaf fans to draw up how they see game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs on the back end, I think most people have Sandin at 7. You know, like that there's going to be someone else brought in. There's going to be a heavier presence on the bottom pair. Seems to be consensus that Liljegren has passed him, I think, in terms of team people's comfort level and offensive upside. So yeah, because of the getting bumped off pucks, and Justin Hall is another guy. He's going to be in. I mean, Hall's going to be in. But you want him to be your third pair guy, ideally.
It's crazy to assume that if the Leafs are going to get help, it won't cost them somebody in the roster.
Well, but contending teams don't do that, right? They don't take away from the roster trying to win a cup, unless you just don't think those guys can help you win a cup, which is in itself an option. You can make that statement.
And how deep in the help department do you want to go?
When you guys brought in a bunch of people with the Rangers before your cup, how many people went out?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest one, and a guy that actually went on to have great success in Chicago, was Tony Amonte. Tony Amonte was a big name, a hockey USA guy, all-star, legitimate 30-goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
That was the cost for Matteau and Noonan, who ended up being historically as good as any bottom 6 pickup.
Yeah.
They were phenomenal.
Was Amonte playing
with two
second line at the time?
Matteau with 2 double overtime goals.
Yeah.
That certainly are a big part of history now.
Where was Amonte in your lineup prior to that? Prominent.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
On the depth chart. 3, 4, 5.
And you guys were first in the league. You traded your 3, 4, 5.
Great
for depth.
Messier, Graves.
Yeah.
Larmer, but Amonte would have been a guy that could easily find himself playing with Messier.
Yeah.
Or second line.
How did you guys feel about losing a guy of that prominence for bottom?
Yeah, it was quite shocking, to be honest with you, that they would give up. But that's what historically has happened this time of year, that you have to give up something to get something good.
Yeah.
Could be a bit of a wake-up call, too, where it kind of shakes the room up and go, holy crap.
The question is
serious. It's because it's never really happened.
Is that where the Leafs are at now? Does Kyle need just to shake the tree right now?
Well, they're going to. I don't think we're sitting here on March 4th and we're going, well, same guys. I do think fundamentally the team will be the same, but there's going to be a couple of new bodies, which I think shakes it up a little bit, unless it's purely bottom of the lineup guys.
The problem is the good news back then is you could just make trades and add, and there was no restrictions other than you saying yes or no to what you like.
Boy, that sounds great.
And now, as we documented last
doesn't it?
week, you are up against this flat cap. You're up against no trades, no moves, and I don't know how many good players are really out there.
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
How many can be difference makers?
Well, and I don't know how much of a difference I feel like the biggest names can make. So there's this divide between Ryan O'Reilly, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves. I don't know what they are, 30-some point guys right now in 40-some games. How much are they going to move the needle?
Yeah.
Versus these bottom end guys that maybe you can find someone who really contributes meaningfully, but is a smaller name. there's tough decisions.
Wow. The other thing, too, is how healthy are certain guys? How healthy is Pat Kane right now? How healthy is Jonathan Taves? They've got issues there.
Yeah.
How
I'm glad we get to see them on Wednesday night. This is funny. We're getting to see all the tour here of
Leafs got burned with Nick Foligno. He was not healthy.
Yeah.
Comes in.
You should be able to return him at the
Hurts
store.
hurts his back.
Pick back.
Remember, he hurt his back right away.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill when you've given up.
Is Taves different than that somehow?
A first and a fourth.
He hurt his back on the most innocent play. Remember, he was like skating towards the net in Montreal and kind of just stopped up and just like his whole back gave out, basically.
That's great.
Yeah. That was before the playoffs happened.
Oh, and that was a big part of the documentary, too. Didn't they? Don't you remember seeing Nick Foligno kind of crawl on the floor?
Yeah.
When he came in off the ice in Montreal?
Yeah.
And then they followed him into the trainer's room. And he's apologizing, too.
Yeah.
Like, how bad did he feel? Like he's letting people down. That was
It's gonna be an awful feeling.
awful feeling.
Knowing that your hometown team, the one that traded for you.
Yeah. I
Traded
mean,
a
look, he
pick.
had the little bucket from his dad. Like he was, everyone wanted to love him.
Comes in here, try with big expectations, and then he's got a. Oof. It's
And
tough.
even like he did everything you could have hoped. Like he tried, he fought Perry after Perry kneed Tavares by accident or not. But like he was one of the guys who would be willing to do that sort of thing, and it just didn't work out. Don't want to trade for someone else who has great intentions, but without the physical ability to do it.
Wow. I think he somewhat feels justified with his success in Boston now.
Sure.
That he's still a great player. He's not a front-leg player like he was in Columbus, a guy that obviously the Leafs kind of traded for still. They were hoping they were getting the front line.
Yeah.
Nick Foligno, but now they're getting the depth Nick Foligno in Boston.
Yeah. I mean, if they could find the depth Nick Foligno somewhere else, I bet they'd take it right now.
I'm sure
how
they're
many are out there, and how many
Sean
want to give up?
Corrali? Yeah.
I just feel like it'll be a guy that no one has talked about.
Yeah,
Like
like
Lyubushkin-
Lyubushkin
like-
was. Lyubushkin was the ultimate. Sorry, who's that?
When that happened, I was like, to Google.
Yeah.
Well, that's an established strength of Sheldon or Kyle Dubas's, is it not?
With scouting and finding guys.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Bunting, Lyubushkin. I don't know if you have to go back to Bill Armstrong and
was
pull
gonna
another
say-
one out of
I was
Arizona.
going to say it's going to go to Arizona.
But that seems to pull out names that we don't necessarily associate with and find some success there. So that's what Leaf fans are hoping for. No question. Okay, we're going to take a break. And then, as we promised, after the break, Bruce Boudreau, former NHLer, now working back in the media. He's back on the dark side. Can't wait to talk to him. Bruce Boudreau, after the break, you're watching and listening to Real Kyper and Bourne.
is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
As promised before the break, Bruce Boudreau set to join us, former head coach, the Vancouver Canucks, now pulled right back to the dark side, the media, doing work with an NHL network. Let's welcome in Gabby. Hey, Bruce, thanks for doing this, man. How are you?
No problem, Nick. I'm okay. How are you?
And like right back into it, eh? It's like you never left.
Well,
they won't even give you some time off.
Well, it's not a question of anybody giving me time off. It's my wife saying, "Get the hell out of the house. You're killing me right now." So I was bored, and I'm not good at sitting around, and I knew that option was going to be there. So it gets you talking hockey all the time, so it's always fun.
That's great. Bruce, well, we appreciate you joining us today. Have appreciated your candor and insight over the years. And I guess I'll just start with sort of a generalized look back at how do you look back at your time with Vancouver? It was I don't want to say a weird time. You would know better than I, but how do you look back at your time with the Canucks?
You know what? This is going to be really crazy answers, but I mean, I look back at every time I'm in the NHL as a fabulous time. And getting a chance to work in a Canadian market was something that I'd always wanted to do, and it was a great experience. I mean, there was a lot of highs and lows. You know, the first year there, it was nothing but highs. This year there wasn't a lot of highs, but I mean, it was a great experience. I'll tell you that. And there's passionate fans in Canada. I coached in the States, 3 different teams and 3 different kind of markets. But I mean, I can't imagine what the home city would be like. But I mean, Vancouver was crazy, and everybody knows who you are. The hockey is the biggest thing going down there, and when you're good, they know you're good. When they're bad, they let you know you're bad. So it was a great experience, but I wouldn't have changed it for anything.
You know, Gabby, you mentioned passionate fans, and it's passionate fans now with an opinion, and it's passionate fans who can write or voice their opinions. And today, I think in the Toronto Star, Damian Cox wrote an article how you should replace Sheldon Keefe today. And it used to be that as a coach, you'd deal with a few beat reporters, and at the end of the day, that would be it. But you know, in the short order that you've been coaching in the last little while, the growth of a Twitter, an Instagram, how did that feel with so many watching your every move and having the ability to write about it or report about it?
You know what? I can answer it like this. I remember driving through Toronto a few years ago, and some fan phoned into one of the shows and said, you know, there was a shift in the second period where he didn't go to the bench hard or something like that. And I went, man, oh, man, they scrutinized every little thing here. I couldn't believe how, they would never have done that in Anaheim, that you'd never be on a radio show talking hockey, or even at the beginning in Washington. But, I mean, I was just astounded at how that every fan knows so much about the game and watches every portion of the game here. I mean, thank God I'm not on Twitter or any social media thing, because I would have lost my mind, I think, just on the criticism alone if you were on there. But, I mean, so I try to stay away from there, and I don't read papers. I'll watch the hockey games, but that'll be it, because as a coach, especially in Van, I mean, it's too tough. If you start reading and watching all the news articles and everything else, man, I mean, it can really play a number on you.
Bruce, who are some of the? I'll take it back. Actually, throughout your career, you've coached different types of people. Like Alex Ovechkin was a unique hockey player, and you have to coach him a little bit differently, I imagine, than you would. Oh, if I was your player, or someone like that. Are there anyone like that on the Canucks who needed a different way to be coached because of their particular skill set or personality?
Well, I can answer it like this. I mean, and I've done this ever since I started coaching. I think one of the things you have to do is be sort of a psychologist a little bit, but I think one of the coach's jobs, other than X's and O's, is to find out what makes everybody tick. And I used to call it find their Achilles heel. And some guys it would be take an ice time away. Sometimes it would be embarrassing them on the video. Some guys needed a pat on the back, and you need to talk to them, like quietly. Like Mike Green, for example. If I came down and was screaming at Mike Green, his game would not get better. But if you took him aside and said, Mike, I need you tonight, man. Yeah. Come on, you're my best player, and you got to go. That would have an effect on him. And I think that goes the same with every team. I mean, every team I've been on, there's all these kind of different personalities, and they all and they're all different on what makes them tick. And, I mean, Vancouver was no different. They had a lot of, strong personalities, and at the same time, they had a lot of quiet guys. And you've got to find out. It's my job to find out what makes them work.
We're talking to Bruce Boudreau, former NHL coach, 617 career wins, and currently on the NHL Network. Gabby, Saturday night, a 4-3 loss to Columbus for the Toronto Maple Leafs in regulation. We heard from Sheldon Keefe earlier in our show on a few of his sound bites, questioning the effort and the competitiveness of his players. As a head coach, how concerned would you be with those comments with under 30 games to go compared to, say, maybe uttering those words in November?
I don't really think it makes any difference. I mean, some games you don't play well. I mean, whether it's game 78 or game 7. I mean, and I think Sheldon was right on. I mean, they're a better team than Columbus, and they didn't have one of their better games. But, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. But that's a coach's job, is sometimes to call them out. And yourself as a player, Kyper, that, I mean, you didn't play your best for 82 straight games. And sometimes you get into a trend where you're not playing well, and you need to be told that you're not playing well just to make to give your head a shake and check it out. I would not be surprised, and especially when you play the same team back to back, you might think, oh, we didn't play our best game on the first game, but I mean, we got them now. They're an easy team. We'll beat them, and you don't. You call it a trap game or you call it whatever you want, but I mean, it gets you. I would guarantee that the Leafs will play an awful lot better the next game because they would have gotten the message. I mean, they're not, they're all teams nowadays and players are a little bit more sensitive than they were back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s. But I mean, I think they're all smart enough to know that when they didn't play good, they might need a good kick in the butt, and they got the good kick in the butt, and I expect them to be really good the next night.
Okay, so the Leafs play Wednesday in Chicago. They just have one game this coming week till next Saturday. With you being in a position where you're questioning your club's effort or competitiveness, what would a week with one game on a Wednesday look for you? Where would you focus on? Is it a hard skate on Monday or Tuesday without pucks? Is there a lot of short conversations, a ton of meetings? How would you handle a week going into this?
Well, I think the no pucks thing is that ship has sailed in today's game. I mean, you could make a hard practice. I mean, if they needed it, I don't know if they needed it or not. But sometimes it's a one-off. He's said his piece, and I mean, he knows those players better than anybody. And I mean, I would expect them to react accordingly. I mean, he's done a great job with them, and they're in a lofty position, and it's tough every night when you know you're playing Tampa in the first round, and you've known it for 40 games now. I mean, it's tough to get up every night. I don't think I would panic over one game, especially not the Leafs, where I've watched them a lot, and they rebound very quickly. They don't let things. I don't know how many losses they've got this year, but I mean, it's not a ton, and I think they'll be fine against a Chicago team that lately has been playing fairly well. They can't score a lot, but I mean, they really work hard. So they'll have to work hard if they want to have success, but I'm pretty sure they will.
Bruce, we're talking about motivating guys and, whether it's a bag skate here or, finding out what makes guys tick. The honest question that I have that I'm kind of been beating around the bush is just, what was it like coaching JT Miller? Because on the outside right now, we hear a lot of, oh, he's a problem or he's this great guy, or we don't have any sense. What was your experience like?
Well, you know what? I knew that was the question you were getting at. That's why I was trying to dodge it.
You're savvy.
No, but hey, listen, I really like JT, and I want passionate players on my team. And JT's a passionate player, and sometimes his passion would, get the better of him for short periods of time, but he would bounce right back. It would be, okay, it's done, boom. He's a really good guy. He's a really liked player in the dressing room. He's a really good hockey player. I mean, if I was ever coaching again and I could get him on my team, I would want him in a heartbeat. He's not a problem at all. He's just a passionate hockey player. And I would love to take a passionate hockey player that wants to win every night over the guy that just is very laissez-faire, or whatever that word is that I'm trying to say.
I think you got it right.
So when he banged his stick on the crossbar to get your third string goalie out of the net, that's passion. That's a guy misunderstood.
Well, that was me. He was looking at me, and I was saying stay in until JT didn't look at the goalie looking at me, and he's banging the stick on the net telling him to go with only 40 seconds to go. I mean, I think that was made mountain out of a molehill, and I think it was Velia's second game. So he didn't know, or it might have even been his first game. So he didn't. He's looking at me. I'm sitting there, got my hand out. Hold on, wait till we start bringing the puck up the ice. And JT's going, go, go, go. JT's not looking at me. He knows what should have been happening. So, I mean, that wasn't on him at all. That was totally on me.
You're probably like, I can't even believe I'm still having this conversation. But anyway, we had to have it. The other thing that I know we've asked you about the Leafs a little bit, but I do want to get your sense for the type of play. You're talking about passion, and Guy Miller will get on guys and get in each other's face. We don't see that here in Toronto. What is your sense for how necessary that grit and passion and physicality is in the playoffs? Like, do the Leafs need to add someone at the deadline, import a little bit of that, or does it has to come from the inside, or do you need it at all?
Well, I don't know what they need. I don't know the personalities of the Leafs players. I mean, they're just a great team to me. And like when you're a top 5 team in the NHL, and the Leafs are, and you happen to play another top 5 team in the NHL, it's really not fair that one of them loses. But one of them loses in the first round. And, I mean, we keep getting mad at the Leafs, but, I mean, they've played, when you lose to Tampa, who's been in the Cup Finals 3 times, other than the fact that fans really want the Leafs to win, it's a 50-50 proposition even before they start. And as far as what the Leafs go, I'll tell you what, they know an awful lot more than what they need than I do. I thought they've changed their game this year, and they're so much better defensively. For most of the year, they've been a top 5 to 10 defensive team in the league. They don't play the run-and-gun style that maybe the last couple of years where let's just score 6 and let the other team see what they can do. I think they've changed their game a lot, and I think they play more like playoff hockey will help them. And I mean, I think that's Sheldon being a good coach. I mean, understanding what it's going to take to win. Tampa understood what it would take to win. It was a couple of players. They went out and got them. I think the Leafs have changed their style a little bit. They still are tremendously offensive, but I mean, at the same time, they're really a lot more responsible defensively. And I think that's going to really help them. And I think when it comes to the playoffs, it's going to be another 7-game series. And hopefully that they can prevail this time. Another
topic, Gabby, is Michael Bunting. We had Anthony Stewart earlier on in the show, and he made an excellent point that, he's a guy that likes to drag people into the fight, and he's done it on many occasions, but there is the times when it's a little over dramatic with him drawing penalties or being engaged with the officials. I'm sure you've coached players like this in the past. What do you do? What do you say to a Michael Bunting to get a lot of those positive vibes back in your court?
Well, I mean, yeah, we've all had players like that. I've had the Matt Cooks and Sean Averys and and stuff that they go a little overboard. Sometimes I don't know if Michael does this or how much he does it, because I haven't. When you're playing in Vancouver, as much as you're trying to watch the Leafs as much as I can, you don't get to see them when you're working. But if he, I think it's just coach talking to player and player understanding what you have to do. And I think if you're getting through to him, and I think it's not hard to get through to any player. Like I said, you just push the right buttons on the player, and he'll work it. Like Michael Bunting, if he gets overzealous, I guess is the word. I mean, they might just put him on the third line a couple times rather than playing the top six, and I think that usually does the trick. But I mean, I have no idea what they're trying, what methods they're going to try to use, or if they're even necessary to use to get him going. I think he's a pretty fine hockey player myself.
Bruce, one last one for me. I just want to, I'm a former American League video coach. I want to get a sense of how much you lean on a video coach, how kind of, it's just the technology has changed so much even from when I was doing it. How much is that a part of your daily routine? Are you best buddies with your video coach?
Absolutely the best. We had Dylan Crawford and Greg Hood. We have two of them, and their office is adjacent to mine with a window between the two. And I mean, we're talking all the time. And I've told them their job is much more than just video and cutting up video and preparing what we want to watch. But they find it as quick as they get it. And the video nowadays is so advanced. I mean, there's different systems every year popping up that you have to learn. And I don't know. It's hard to imagine when there was even one video coach only, let alone none. And that was a short, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was no video coaches. You had to cut up all the stuff yourself. And I mean, but they're invaluable. They're totally part of the coaching team. Like now, when we had coaches meetings, they were included in every meeting. So, I mean, and they usually, when they get to know the coach really well, they get to read him. They usually have the stuff that he wants before the coach even asks for it, because they know what the coach wants, and then they put that in their folders. And like if I want all the neutral zone plays, and he would have it all there ready for me before I even ask for it. So I mean, these are the kind of things that they do, and like I said, they're invaluable nowadays. And I mean, we have 6 coaches on our staff now, and then the Sedin brothers as development coaches were there all the time. So I mean, we'd have eight coaches having ideas, and I'd sit there and we'd go into some of the older buildings where there's only room for 2 coaches. They haven't expanded the coaches' rooms, and we go, man, this is antiquated, because there's so many more coaches in every situation now on every team.
That's awesome.
One more for me, Gabby, before I let you go, and that is that, of course, you were born and raised in Toronto, so you know the scrutiny around NHL hockey in Canada, and yet you coached in places like Anaheim, Washington, and Minnesota. But is there anything that could prepare you or anyone for the fishbowl of coaching in the National Hockey League in Canada, particularly in Vancouver?
Well, coaching in Vancouver will prepare you for anywhere. I can tell you that.
Was it everything you thought it would be? Was it less, more, or right where right where you thought?
Well, you know what? It was probably a little more. And like I said before, like from the radio thing, is I would, for example, go around, and normally you talk to players on the ice while they're warming up and everything else before practice. And I'd get questions. I saw you talk to Bo Horvat for 30 seconds there. Were you talking about his leaving? Well, I mean, they would just notice every little thing. You came to the bench early. You were on the ice 5 minutes early. Was that because you needed to talk to people? Like every little thing I found out very early in my tenure there, that, I mean, they watch everything because there's and it's not just one reporter with a hat that says press on it. There's a dozen people every time you go there, and they're looking for all the little things, and you have to be prepared. I mean, it's a different mindset. It'd probably be like a media guy doing the Yankees. I'm thinking from New York, and that's I loved it, quite frankly. I'm such a hockey nut and love to talk hockey that I had no problem with them, whether they're right on or they were fishing or whatever they were doing. I mean, it was always interesting on all the pressers that we did before the games or after the games.
Well, look what it's done for your cameo appearances. Prior to coaching in Vancouver, you were charging $5, right, for a message. and now what are you at? About $900?
Oh no, I got off that. I got off that once we started losing.
Well, when's your birthday, JB?
Oh, not till December, kid. Long ways
Sammy,
off.
you got a birthday coming up? We can get one for free right now out of Gabby. No, that's okay. We'll cash in our discount later.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Bruce Boudreau, thanks so much for your time, man, and wish you the best of luck.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Bruce Boudreau.
What a guy.
As popular as you'll ever see.
We should be. He tells it like it is. I mean, you get frustrated sometimes. You hear coaches give all the giving it our best, and they say nothing. Bruce went out there and said stuff. It catches fire sometimes, but he was a straight shooter. Got to give him credit for that.
Hey, listen, now still has a reputation as a guy that could come in and maybe clean up or mop up a team. If
that did come up recently in an article.
I'm not leaning. I don't believe for one
Has anyone
second
written about that recently?
I don't believe for one second that's going to be a scenario. And we mentioned earlier, Damien Cox writing an article for the Toronto Star today, suggesting that there's a coaching change and a guy like Bruce Boudreau could come in.
Yeah, you don't soften it because he didn't. He said, fire Keefe, bring in Boudreau.
Yeah. And we know historically it hasn't happened very often this late in the season, but there has been on occasion. But there's just no way. If you didn't even contemplate it during a rough stretch at the beginning of the season,
yeah,
you're not there now, and it's still a top contending team. The numbers, the success in his regular season, no one's going there.
No, and you can have the opinion that he's not the right coach. You can have the opinion earlier in the year that he needs to get fired. There's 28 games left. Implement a new system and see if it works. Now you were uncomfortable having the bottom 6 auditions at this point, let alone a whole new thing. I don't know. I do understand the teams have changed coaches later in the season. I don't know about a top 5 team in the NHL doing it.
Well, and specifically this top 5 team.
Right. They've said, Sheldon, this is it. And Sam and I were saying before, and you too before the show, it's if he wins in the first round, he may keep his job. If he loses, he's fired.
Yes. And it's simple.
Gambit.
As simple as that. But we are also talking about a team that's lost how many in a row in the first round? And
6.
Doubled down and tripled down, and
they got no chips left.
Right?
Here. The whole thing's in the pot. Here.
It's in.
Yeah.
Last year was an example where they're going to come back. No one's getting fired, but there has to be one of their top 4 guys traded, get a defenseman. That didn't happen either. So to suggest that
all of a sudden they're going to be like,
yes. We're gonna go off the board.
No, if you made it here, you're living and dying by what the bed you've made here. It's just a real mixed metaphor there, but whatever.
Yeah. In a couple different ways with that one.
All right. News and notes around the league. Let's start with Jacob Chychrun, held out and will be held out for the remainder of the Arizona Coyote games.
Yep. You've got him going to L.A.
Well, L.A., the Brent Clark was the name that a lot of people that I had heard on the inside focusing in. I think it's another example of the value that they have on top of Jacob Chychrun with his 3 more cracks at a Stanley Cup at $4.6 million. That puts the value of this trade above Bo Horvat's. And we'll see where Timo Meier falls. But this means that you got to give us what we consider your top prospect. We went through this with Matthew Nyes with the Leafs, and now Clark's a top 10 player, 8th overall pick in 2021.
He's got to be one of the top prospects in the league.
Has to be.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
And ripping it up since he's been returned from the World Juniors. 26
points in 15 games for the Barrie Colts this year as a defenseman.
If you are Arizona, if you're Bill Armstrong, why wouldn't you ask for a guy like that?
Sure. Yeah, I totally get that. You know, I do have questions with LA. Like, who do they think they are? Like, where do they think they are? What are they, like an even goal differential team that's on the fringes of the playoffs? Yeah. However, with Chychrun, he's a multi-year guy. He's a long-term asset. You know, I get it.
They're still kind of ahead of schedule, the Kings, I think. Like, even for them to have made the playoffs last year.
But you worry about moving in too early before you're ready.
But they are, you know, they're down in the first wild card spot now. They are 5
points. I guess Kopitar's getting older.
They're 5 points up in the last spot. So
Doughty's getting older. Like, you can't wait that long.
I don't know. It's a fascinating spot.
Yeah. So Leafs not happening then? You know?
Listen, as they say, it's everybody should be open. Everybody should be talking until the deal is done and it's stamped by the league. Why wouldn't the Leafs continue talking and trying to find something that improves their hockey club? Names that are being bantered now don't mean necessarily that those are the names that you're going to end up with. We know this time of year, things get floated out. There's test balloons. Am I allowed to use that? Am I allowed to use balloons?
You are. It's a very hot and
UFOs.
Right? So that's part of the game right now.
Yeah. It is fascinating. And, you know, I mentioned those other big names you don't trust as much. Like Chychrun, you're sure is a player. But I will say, you've seen a couple of clips, you know, now that he's more in the news, people are watching him more closely.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, there's some flaws. You know, like most players, he's got his warts.
So St. Louis probably had the first rounder on the table from the New York Rangers, decided to take it now.
Yeah.
Might not be there at the end. And they had to throw in the big defenseman there, Mikkola.
Yeah.
Who comes in as a 5 or 6, but one of those guys where you could easily tire of playing against in the best of 7 because he's 6'5" and he's got like octopus hands.
It was interesting.
Arms. Rangers are red hot now. They've won in 5 in a row. Panarin scored 4 the other night. Tarasenko scores in his debut. Like,
so, as an Islanders fan, watching the Oilers and Rangers be red hot,
not great.
Not good.
Can you remind me when their letter went out to the fans, much like the Philadelphia Flyers? It was a plea to be patient.
That's a good question.
And
hold on,
that was
4 years ago. It's pre-Panarin.
A letter of intent that we're an original 6 team. We have a tremendous amount of pride, but we need to do this.
Hey, question.
And they are a contending team right now. Would you not have them as a contending team?
One of the favorites, you know, one of the Boston.
When did that go out? 2018?
February 8th, 2018.
Okay.
Question. Was Tortorella the coach then there?
Question.
No. When was, I don't remember.
No, he was coaching.
No, he was well gone.
Yeah, he's well gone.
Yeah. He's Columbus.
So let me ask you something. When that letter went out, were the Leafs way ahead of their kind of build-up?
Well, yeah, they were in year 2 or 3 or something of their playoff pushes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's also really dark to me that
have the Rangers passed the Leafs, you think, in your mind? Or
they're there, yeah. I mean, they're neck and neck. If I had to pick them in a series, I'd probably pick the Rangers today.
You would, eh?
Yeah.
Gun to my head, if they asked me which roster I'd want to have be the Leafs roster, it would be a tough choice. If I could have the Rangers,
you got to give them credit for stockpiling assets. And
Keandre Miller made a huge difference for them. He became a stud.
He is
quick.
He's a
range.
rock star.
Yeah,
I love him. And they're big.
Yeah.
And they got bigger with Mikkola.
I was thinking about that. Boy, it's like Tarasenko and Mikkola. What's that? A left winger and a bottom D? It's
And-
like,
that might have played.
right.
And Shesterkin.
And Shesterkin, yeah.
And Panarin all of a sudden feels good because he's got a buddy now in Tarasenko.
Did he score 4 on Saturday night?
Yes.
Panarin? Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good
Uh,
amount of goals to have in a game.
Timo Meier, the biggest name out there now outside of Pat Kane, if he says yes or no. And
Well, Timo Meier's a bigger name in terms of not
Future.
fame, but
future.
help you this year. Yeah. I think.
And there was another article.
Yeah,
you
Jonas Siegel
Yes,
wrote a little bit
in The
about
Athletic.
Meyer. Yeah,
And-
in The Athletic, and basically said it's viable for the Leafs to do it.
Yeah.
So the reality is you trade for Meyer, and he is the next team, whoever has his rights. You were explaining this to me better before the show,
Yes.
but basically has to offer him a 1-year, $10 million deal. That's
Yes.
his qualifying offer,
Yeah.
or he becomes a free agent.
Unless you get him to sign on a dotted line on an extension, which he's eligible to sign at any moment. And
Which could be less than the 10 million but he would only
Yes.
take it if it's got massive term. If you said 8 times 8, 5.
the only question I ask you is, are athletes now in a position to bet on themselves? Does he take the surefire 10 million and then pick his spot the following year anywhere he wants to go for
Yeah.
what we think would be a much higher cap and be in a
Yeah.
position to maybe match his 10 million if he comes off another 35, 40 goal season? Or would he welcome a trade and sign at 8 or 8.5?
Well, and the other thing there too is you could trade for him and have him as a $6 million player, have them retain, have him as a $3 million player. Oh, my chair just dropped down.
What?
But then you could trade him. You could trade him as an RFA and recoup some of the assets and say to someone else, you have Timo Meier now. You can either give him the 10 or extend him. And if you're Meier, the idea of being extended for 8 years with that team might be the incentive you need to sign. I'm sure it was for Bo
But it
Horvat.
is taking a chance.
Oh, it sure is.
It's taking a chance that Timo says, I'm playing out my option, that unless you offer me a match at my 10 million,
Yeah.
I'll bet on myself, and then you're caught.
Well, then you got to trade Bilbo Baggins. That's your only options. Nylander's gone at that point. Or you see if someone wants Meyer at 1 year, 10 million. There'd be takers, don't you think?
I would think
Yeah,
it would be hard, though.
yeah.
It
Someone
would be hard
like,
to fit that in.
retain 2.
We're talking about next year, so
Yeah.
even if they renegotiate the cap, which we
Yeah.
think that it'll be heading there,
Yeah.
we're talking about a minimal 3 million, maybe.
I mean, that
It'd be
seems
hard
massive to me.
It'd be hard to
It'd be
add
great.
that, and I think we're experiencing that with all the Erik Karlsson talk,
Mhm.
linking him to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done, how do you make this happen with a commitment still of 3 or 4 more years, Sammy, on Erik Karlsson? And
I think 4.
can you convince San Jose to pick up 50%?
No chance.
Like that's a tough pill to swallow for an owner. That
3
I'm
first
gonna,
round picks, probably not going to.
I'm paying.
Depends if he likes hockey or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it's a smart, you can pay $20 million for first round picks out the wazoo. I mean, the MLSE would love to do that. But I understand your point.
Yeah.
As a San Jose Sharks owner, maybe there's less appeal of paying $20 million for assets that may not become something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, is it a salary dump, or do you really think you're going to end up with a couple of first rounders and a blue chip prospect? Or is it going to be, I'm doing you a favor here? So
Well, that's the other thing too. Is
Edmonton saying, we're doing you a favor, we're going to get rid of
it's the Max Pacioretty thing with Carolina, where you say, "Well, take him off your hands. You don't have the cap space, and if you're
Yeah.
the Oilers, you're saying to San Jose, you're not trying to win right now. So we're doing you a favor, taking this huge hit off your books. We'll give you a 3rd round pick. We'll take the salary. You have the cap space. That's your new asset, because that is teams now look at cap space as an asset, like they did picks and prospects in the past.
Yeah. But that's all of a sudden picked up steam, hasn't it?
Carlson to the Oilers,
Yes.
yeah.
You've been talking about this for 4 months, Kip.
Well, I was talking about a guy that certainly is on his way to win a Norris,
I mean, my God.
right?
How about
It's gonna
him
be
on
really
the
hard not
Oilers
to give him
power
a
play?
Norris.
He's got to be the best power play D-man in the NHL for God knows how long.
You know what somebody
State of
Too
the
many,
box against
too many
the Oilers.
cooks, though, maybe?
he's also actually got good numbers 5-on-5.
Oh, like scoring numbers. Yeah, like goals and assists.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like he is
I think he might have more even strength points than McDavid or goal. Like he's up
Yeah.
there. Like it's
I think people tend to think he's detrimental defensively.
Yeah.
But when he's on the ice, you got a better chance of scoring than having a goal scored against you.
the play's going that way
Right?
this year. Yeah, I mean, he's been.
But the other thing too is, guys, like, you know, you can link Carlson to Edmonton all day long, but somebody's got to ask him, would you and your wife want to go and play in Edmonton for the next 4 years?
That is such. I thought of that too when I heard of that. I was like, so he's a no move,
Yes,
and
no
you're
move.
going to go to him in San Jose and say,
Yeah.
would you like to go to Edmonton for 4 years?
Yeah.
Ottawa's pretty cold in the winter too, boys. He played there a long
Yeah,
time.
but here's the
Does it mean
difference.
he liked it?
He played there when he didn't have any other choice.
Yes.
He was a free agent, and he handpicked the Pacific Ocean as a view.
The Swedes the Swedes like the cold.
Hey,
I love you as the
Okay,
teenager
all
from
right.
Simpsons.
all right, maybe you know something, Sammy.
No, I know nothing.
I
But-
would yeah.
Is that would that be must-see TV? Carlson and Connor McDavid.
Do you
and
think though there's
Draisaitl?
a thing like is that too many good players and people are gonna be like, shut up, that's dumb. But like, who runs the power play? They're the best power play in the NHL. Can someone make it better?
Well, you need somebody to play on the back.
Yeah, I mean Tyson Barrie, I guess, has done okay.
Oh, Tyson's already. They can't ship Tyson back to San Jose fast enough.
Yeah, would that be the?
They'd have to unload that. Yes.
Yeah.
There's no world where Carlson comes in and Tyson Barrie's still there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But who was it tweeting about? Or maybe Elliot said today that Barrie is like an integral part of the internal workings in Edmonton. They love him. He's
All
a
right.
good guy.
No Carlson then.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm sure the guys are like, we absolutely love him, and we can catch up in the summer.
Yeah.
See
you on the golf course.
Yeah, we'll book a tea time in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
we will catch up. We're okay. But yeah, I understand that it's there are personalities at work, but you want the best players possible.
Luke Shen, all of a sudden, not that cheap to trade for him.
Wasn't he on waivers 3 years
Yeah, a
ago?
while ago.
Yeah.
That kind of ship sailed. Now
Yeah.
you're getting a leader. You're getting a guy that's playing 17 minutes a night.
I worry
you're
about the
getting
cup champ guy who's.
You're getting the most physical hitter in NHL modern history.
Yeah. I know you're right. I mean, it's all that. I just worry that the reputation has outgrown reality. You know what I mean? Like
Wow. All of a sudden, it's not that far fetched to think that you might press for a first rounder or a second rounder.
if the Leafs trade a first rounder for Luke Shen, I'm not coming into work the next day. No disrespect to Luke Shen. He's a very good and valuable player.
That is funny. That is funny. All right. Just like that, 2 hours. Sammy, do I have to, from the gala, do I have to get you home by midnight, or are you going to turn into something?
Don't know, Kyper.
Don't know.
Don't know, buddy.
All right.
Just getting
Have fun
through
tonight,
here.
fellas.
Just getting through.
We'll have some fun. Of course, it's a night with the blue and white presented by Rogers, the Leaf Gala, where Sammy will make his debut. All right. Our thanks to Anthony Stewart. Our thanks to Bruce Boudreau. Give us a rating and review if you get a chance. Thanks for joining us. We're back tomorrow.